year or so old now. It's just genuine language. Right. I mean, obviously, like, deep brand, we're based on everything's sort of locally.
I've got like volumes and things that I'll just manage from there. You can just leave it on once it's on, unless you feel more secure turning it up.
Are you speaking with
There's pretty gloomy out there.
Yeah. I recognize that.
I saw the tickets and I was like,
Where is it?
yeah, that's good. I mean, even like doing like the final building, you kind of need to tap someone on the shoulder and like they're there. A lot more effective frictional kind of method from there and then
testing? Excellent. This is working, so everyone can hear us? Yay. Okay. Thank you. Welcome everyone who's turned up tonight and everyone online. My name's Tanya Fraser. I work at a company called Nexify, where I work with a team creating immersive content. But here tonight, I'm here representing Immersive Australia and as part of AWE Night Queensland. So I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land, the Turrbal and Yagara people, to past elders, future elders, and pay respects to those people. This meeting, it's the first of a series of 4 meetups we've got planned with AWE Night Queensland. AWE is a global VR community. They're connecting people. We could do another slide now. So AWE have over 30 meetup chapters around the world. Thank you. I'm not used to using microphones. I prefer not to use them because I tend to talk too loud or spit into the phone. So AWE have over 30 meetups globally, and they have 3 large conferences a year, one in Asia, one in Europe, and one in the US. AWE's next one is in USA in June, and as part of these meetups, you can get access to some discounts. So the next slide will show you a QR code with early bird tickets if you want to fly off across the world in this economic and political climate. to America. There is your code. However, there is one in Asia in early 2027, and there is also one in Europe at the end of the year. They're both really cool conferences. I haven't been, but I would really like to go because it's where you seem to see a lot of the really exciting content, the enthusiasts, the people who are working in XR around the world. Tonight's a collaboration between AWE and 3 local organisations. I'm representing Immerse Australia. Immerse Australia is a national organisation for immersive technologies. Really similar aims to AWE. We're trying to grow the XR community and provide that meetups like this one. And the other 2 organisations we've got here tonight are Queensland XR Hub and Actuator, and I will hand this mic on to Alana.
Hello, I'll come out from my little corner. So hi, my name is Alana. I'm with the Queensland XR Hub. And so just a little bit about us. So quite similar to Immerse. So we're a industry and community centric organisation, helping to grow the immersive tech extended reality community in Queensland and beyond. So we have a number of activities we're involved in, industry showcase events, pitch challenges, and a lot of educational and engagement programs as well. We have a excellent, vibrant community of around 40 plus members who are all, some are here tonight, hello, who are developing across the range of immersive tech platforms and also across industries. So right through from games and media through to tourism, training simulations and the like. And so our goal through doing this is to basically foster collaboration, drive adoption and innovation of the technology, and also just events like this to help bring the community together. So thank you so much to the co-collaborators, so Tanya and Immerse, and also Seb and Dale with Actuator. Thank you to all our panelists for joining us tonight and sharing your time and your expertise, and thank you so much all for coming. If you do want to learn more about the XR Hub, we've got a couple of QR codes there. If you're interested in looking at membership or just subscribing to our newsletter to see what's on events like this one, we would love to welcome you there. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Alana. So yeah, also supporting is Actuator. So we are a game development studio that we do a lot of work in other areas. So that means enterprise software. We do a lot of work in VR and mixed reality. But also working in industries like mining, construction, ag tech. We have a pretty broad and diverse group of skills and projects, but at our heart, we're really a game studio. And so, you know, it's we're doing what we can to support local game development communities, especially here in Brisbane. So, so that's also one of the supporters here. And so I'm the director there, but I'm also going to be, running this panel today. So thank you again to all the panelists who made it in, and thank you again for everybody who showed up here in person and online. Really appreciate that. Do we have some more slides, Alana? We have a few QR codes for the various events that are collaborating here. So that means the AWE night, a lot of people here I'm noticing have come from the Brisbane Games Development Meetup group, which is fantastic. It's been since COVID that we've had a large event from that community. So great to see that it's back, and great to see that people are still subscribed and joining from the many people who followed over the years at that group. It's great to be here. So there are 3 QR codes for those, including the one from Base Code. You'll notice on the right, there's a little bit of chat. So we've got a big audience tuning in online, both through Twitch and again through YouTube for AWE. So I want to also just plant a little flag here and say those people online, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat and they'll be collected and added to the Q&A. The same goes for the people in the crowd if you guys want to add questions there, or just put your hand up toward the end when Q&A comes around. Next slide, Alana. Okay, that's it. So from there, let's get straight into the talk. Again, welcome to everyone here. It's really exciting to have this talk, and I thought the right place to begin would be, let's just establish what this talk's about, who this talk's for. So, games and game engines change a lot as times change, and so in 2026. We thought the first thing to talk about with this revived meetup group might be the state of game engines and the different advantages, disadvantages of each engine, when you would use it, when you would choose not to, and essentially just like discuss how things are moving and where they're going to be going in the future. This talk is for anybody who is either really familiar with game engines. We're going to have some very technical talks. Components here, since the panel are all very technical people, but we hope to talk broadly about game engines and give people a sense of even if you don't know a lot, you might learn a lot from the questions and the answers that the panel give. So I just want to start by polling the speakers to get a sense of what engines they've worked with. So to begin with, if the speakers could please raise their hands if they've used Unity engine before. Okay, so everyone. I was kind of actually expecting this result. Let's move on to just see who's worked on Unreal before. Okay, excellent. So a lot here as well. What about Godot engine? Okay, we've got 2 speakers. So the numbers dwindling in. I'll be surprised if there's a lot of hands for this, but who's built their own game engine before? Excellent, 2 speakers on the subject. That's actually really cool. I didn't know that. That's very interesting. So I'll shoot a few questions your way when it comes to that as well. And now I want to run the same for the audience. In the audience, who's used Unity? Okay, that's a lot of hands actually. Pretty much everyone there. Who's used Unreal? Excellent. Still hands, but less hands. Who's used Godot before? Okay, significantly less, and some maybe hands there. I saw that, Ben. That was a half-half. Has anybody else in the audience built their own game engine? Okay, we've got 3 hands and another maybe. So that gives us a bit of a read of the temperature of the room in terms of these different options and how popular they are. So I think that's a really good point to start on. One more. Who's never used a game engine before? Everyone here has used a game engine in some form. So that really actually is useful. I imagine many people online may not have, so excuse me if some of those questions are aimed at people entering the industry. Okay, so I'm going to start by introducing our speakers. We have a fantastic panel here today. First, to my right, we have Daniel Stevens. And as you noticed, he raised his hand with quite a bit of conviction when we asked, have you made your own game engine? And I'm going to apologize because a lot of questions are going to be heading his way about that, because not only has he done that, he's shipped several titles on it as well, which is a really, really rare thing. So he is currently working at Playside Studios. And so I'll just hand it to Daniel quickly to give any introduction that you'd like.
Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Yeah, g'day. Yeah, I'm the current head of engineering at Playside Studios Australia. We're a game developer out of Australia. We have an office here on the Gold Coast, and we're also down in Melbourne. We spend a lot of time working on XR titles, VR titles. We use all of the engines we've been discussing so far in one way or another. It's a pleasure to be here, and yeah, let's have a good conversation.
It's a real pleasure to have you, Daniel. Thank you for being here. I do appreciate that. Let's jump over to Josh Sanderson. So just a bit of my own context here with Josh. Josh is one of the main developers behind the indie game Phantom Abyss. And so that was a small team, but a game with a massive scope, a really impressive undertaking. But today he's working at Gameloft. And so, yeah, I think I'll be directing a lot of questions to you about Unreal. So thank you again, Josh, for coming. And if you want to add anything, please go ahead.
Yeah, I've worked at a bunch of companies, including Halfbrick, at a time when they were using their own custom engine as well. So there are a lot of sides to how game engines work, and I wouldn't say that using the custom engine was my favorite experience.
It sounds like there's a little PTSD about that experience, and maybe we can turn this into a therapy session and dig into that a little. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Josh. So we also have Blake. Blake is an academic at QUT. He kind of adds the perspective of there'll be some questions about the state of the industry now as engines are emerging and how people learn and break into the industry. And I expect to send some questions your way about that. Blake, maybe you can give a bit of background about I think you've got a doctorate as well. So you're a doctor, and you focus on computer games specifically. So a very qualified person to speak on that subject. Would you like to add anything to your background?
I think having worked across multiple universities, I think it's been really interesting to see I've gone up. The adoption of real-time engines in multiple different ways at both Griffith and QUT, and how the IT degree is trying to incorporate it into their stuff as well. So that's been really interesting.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'll jump across to Nathan. I interviewed Nathan at the Queensland Games Festival for his game Bravest Coconut. And when I was looking for speakers to represent Godot, as you might have noticed with the hands going up, it was a bit more difficult to do so. But I remember how passionately he spoke about the engine. And when I looked into him, it turns out that he's actually got one of the most popular plugins for the engine. And he has a very successful YouTube channel, and he talks about that and other things. So yeah, I was really thrilled that he was able to jump in and come onto the panel. So would you like to add anything there about your experience? And I saw you had hands up for other engines and stuff like that.
Oh no, just talking about making my own engine. This was the same game, but before jumping to Godot. And yeah, PTSD, I would never make my own engine.
No, fantastic. Thank you so much for coming. We've also got Patrick. Now, Patrick's worked on, as you saw, his hands went up for a few engines there, including Unity. One interesting perspective he adds is Horizon Worlds. So a lot of engines have been moving towards this more, almost like microservice games or smaller games. And I think Meta Horizon is an interesting aspect there. The sustainability of engines will be a thing I'd like to touch on. And I'm sure with what's happened recently on Meta Horizons, there'll be some perspectives you might be able to add there too, as well as, working in an interesting ecosystem with such a large organization. Would you like to add anything about yourself or your own personal projects or experience?
Let's try that again. I'm so sorry, everyone. Yeah, I've been working in Horizons for the last 18 months, maybe. And yeah, it's been such a fast-moving platform with that. And so there have been a lot of ups and downs. And it's been interesting to see that it's like, I did a lot of XR on Unity and seeing the Horizon platform like undergo that journey, but like at like rapid speed. Move fast, break things. But yeah, hopefully people have questions for that.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone. So as you can see, fantastic panel. I'm really excited to get into this. And I think there's no better place to start than looking backwards before we look forward. So the first question I have for the panel would be, how has the engine that you use most evolved and changed over the years? Anyone can jump in. Let's perhaps start with the perspective on Unity, because I think a lot of people entered the industry, especially in our generation, with Unity, and especially with how they made the game development so accessible for the first time. Let's start with that.
I kicked off with Unity back in 2015 in a diploma where we sort of had free reign to just make whatever game that we wanted. And Tom Smeltzer over at MaxUp was my tutor at the time, and he was awesome for I don't know if we can swear, but it was awesome for showing me the ropes in it. But that was Unity 5 back in 2015, I think, and now we're up to. We went through the 2020s of Unity iterations, and we're up to Unity 6 now. The UI is like completely different, and I have to like reassess my understanding of the engine every time I go to help one of my students, because they're like, "How do I do this?" And I'm like, "I know you can. There is a button for it. They've moved it somewhere, though."
Yeah, it sounds like your experience with Unity has become it's changed over the years. I saw you were laughing there, Josh. You had.
I made Mr. Shifty in 2015.
Can you talk a bit about that game? Because you've had a few games that you've released over the years.
Yeah, Mr. Shifty is a top-down brawler about a teleporting secret agent, and it was the first game that I released in Unity. Oh no, it wasn't. I released games in Unity at Halfbrick, and then it was our first independent game.
Do you remember what version of Unity you're working on for those early releases?
It was, if it wasn't Unity 4, it was Unity 5. Yeah, it was quite a while ago. And I'm just laughing at the changes to Unity 6, which is a silly name for it after so long, that the same thing happens in Unreal as well. So it's just very relatable.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How about you, Blake? Have you got any things to add there? Or I guess about the way that your engine has changed with the.
Oh, well, Godot's changed a lot. Like, it used to suck. But since late 3, probably since Godot 4 came out, it's now like, it's everything you need it to be, basically, and nothing you don't really need it to be. And like 4.7's out soon. So like every time they do a point release, is like huge, like it's a massive list. I keep moving it away from my mouth, sorry. It's a massive list of cool new stuff, lots of bug fixes, lots of like everything. It's like thousands of commits every couple of weeks being rolled out the door. And because it's all open source, you can see everything that's happening. There's nothing secret about any of it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. By the way, sorry that I meant to say Nathan there when I referred to you, but have you, I know that you contribute to plugins. Have you made any direct contributions to the engine, out of curiosity?
Yeah, I've made a few documentation ones and one directly to the engine itself for, I forget what, it was a translation thing I needed for one of my plugins. And I found there was a problem with how it was being handled in Godot itself. So I submitted a patch to fix that for myself.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, and please, some speakers may contradict me here, but I feel as though the things that made Unity successful when it was young are now really helping Godot grow.
I feel like Godot gives a shit, which maybe is less true about other engines these days.
I mean, that's one of Unreal's strengths as well, is that a lot of people will find something a specific thing that is bothering them, that is making their life harder. And because it's open source, if you do a good enough job, you can push it back and they will accept it in a year or 2.
Yeah. Well, that's another semi-recent change. I think for a long time, Unreal was quite closed. As a person working with Unreal, have you found that the move to open source philosophy has helped the engine grow?
It probably has helped it grow. It certainly makes a lot of the more technical experts who are making these decisions for big companies, being able to have the source, being able to modify it, being able to do what you need to do or find out what is wrong. Even if to find out what is wrong, to go around it, that is incredibly valuable. And I've heard so many horror stories and had horror stories of Unity is crashing and I can't tell why.
We went through many years working with other people's engines, Rwanda, things like that, where the source wasn't available. Even middleware, like early versions of PhysX and Havoc, etc., where you didn't have access to that source. So your senior engineers would really resist onboarding those packages with your project, with your teams. And it wasn't until like we could get source licenses that they would open up, and the debugging, like the real issue would often be it's crashing and we don't know why, right? And the only solve would be to go to support. We're in Australia, so we'd have 24, 48 hours turnaround to get it resolved. And then the conversation would begin with Unreal releasing that source code. That really eased the nerves of those senior engineers. And I think getting in as an engine programmer, even if you're not an engine programmer, getting into the engine code and being able to debug that issue is a massive boon for them. And we saw a huge uptick of people adopting Unreal once they did release that.
Yeah, fantastic. You actually might have the most unique perspective here, I think, Daniel, because when you started, you maybe didn't start on an off-the-shelf engine like Unity, like the rest of us did. You've built your own engine and shipped things on it. Is that where you got your start in games?
I started in games, it was early 2000s, like PS2 era. PS1 was just sort of falling off. PS3 was on the horizon. I was working in a company called Ratback Games in South Australia. They got bought by Midway Studios. They used proprietary engine. We had some excellent programmers there. Tony Albright's one, you might have heard his name around the place. He does a lot of talks and things like that. And he's always looking to grow junior engineers into technologies. He's a performance engineer these days. You can look him up on the internet, you'll find him. His team was building a game engine at Ratbag, or making racing games, third-person shooters, that kind of thing. Engines are an interesting thing because you have an SDK, like a API that the coders are using to program it. You have tool sets, you have importers, you have exporters, it's all of these things. When we started, it was just an SDK, and then we built up around that. We built an editor, and then the tools sort of, as the TAs come in and ask for them, we built those up as well. So yeah, from the very beginning, there were no game engines at that time. Renderware was around, but that was really just an SDK too at that point.
Yeah. How does game development now compare to then? Do you find the experience, is it better or worse for all of it? There was a lot of to reiterate, PTSD around working with custom engines that people experience, but in some sense, there's also been some sentiment expressed where, like, I remember when game engines used to be fast, and there's a certain development methodology that you're able to implement when you're doing your own engine compared to now. Like you've got that more control. How do you find the trade-offs of control versus reliability for a baseline?
Yeah, I guess that's the argument. Like if you look, or the debate, if you look at some of the studios who are currently using proprietary engines, not like embracing Unity or Unreal, that's almost their go-to. Is we can customize, we can optimize, we can work quickly, and I think they're probably very, very true. Recently in the news, we've heard about Unreal games potentially suffering performance issues, right? And that's true for all engines if you treat the engine generically. I think when you build a game, you need to be able to tweak and tune the game engine that you're using to best suit that kind of game, right? Which means using either the best components and parts of a particular game engine, or getting in there and modifying the game engine to behave better for your particular game.
Yeah. That does actually lead to the one question I had here, and that's so there are a variety of engines, and they all coexist because they fill niches. And so, from the perspective of all the other panelists, what does your engine do best? And maybe let's start with Unreal.
Unreal. So Unreal is, if you want to make a shooter, you pick Unreal, right? It has, you understand where it's coming from. Like you were saying, this is, they have examples of how to use the engine for that. It's designed to make very pretty rendering. They use it in cinematic circumstances quite frequently, like in the Marvel movies, as much as people don't like those parts of the Marvel movies. They use Unreal to render a lot of those.
It's becoming very popular for virtual production and breaking out of computer games as well. I mean,
yeah. And it's very fully featured out of the box. When you open Unreal, you have so many plugins you can turn on, and so many plugins that are just already turned on. Whereas, at least my experience with Unity, there are many features that you want, and there are many people who are willing to provide you those features for a fee on the plugins on the store. And they are of various qualities, which is one of the strengths of the marketplace, is that they have that. And that marketplace is bigger than the Unreal marketplace, but the bigger Unreal gets, the bigger Unreal's marketplace gets.
You might have had something to add there, Daniel, from the look of it.
Oh, it's so true. Middleware is such hit and miss.
Yeah, questionable quality. I think that's the trade-off sometimes with open source too, especially when it's not really controlled.
That's not entirely to say that everything in Unreal is perfect.
Absolutely.
If you're using an experimental or a beta feature, which many of them are for many years, there will still be problems.
So let's circle back to the needs improvement section, because I'll ask this of every engine. Let's talk about Godot now, and say where does Godot shine, and why would you use it?
It's just fun. Like, having tried a few other things, like going back to Godot, it's fun. I don't know.
Has anybody tried installing Godot before?
You don't install Godot. That's the other benefit too.
Tell us about that.
you just download it and it works. It's like 100 meg binary and that's it. Yeah.
No install, just one exe.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, I think Josh touched on, plugins and stuff like that. As an author of one of the most popular plugins on the engine, like how does that ecosystem work? How do you find that compared to other engines?
It's pretty great. The community is really supportive, like to a fault sometimes. Like people kind of get annoyed at how friendly Godot people are and how much they just want you in their community.
That's an interesting downside. It's like too friendly, is it?
Yeah, it's like being hugged to death kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the community is really great. Like, and something like as a community manager for like the stuff that I make, something I always find is like, whenever people come to you with like a frustration of something's not working the way they think, like sometimes they have such a really great idea of a feature to add, and then their frustration is just like the mask you have to get through to get to the cool thing that they've actually thought of.
Yeah.
And that happens so often. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so all the panelists raised their hand for Unity. So anyone feel free to jump in and let's where does Unity shine? How about we have let's hear from Patrick.
Not gonna blow out everyone's ears this time. I do miss Unity. Yeah, like working in Horizons is so different that I miss being able to, control my own modules, being able to plug whatever random asset off the store I can get. I'm like, I need something. Someone's probably already made it. And if it's not on the store, there's probably a GitHub repo that's already done that. It's complete opposite because working in Horizons, it's completely closed off. There's only one development source, and it's like a platform as a service, so you have to always be up to date with whatever woes that entails.
I once heard that under the hood, Horizon actually lent on Unity to deliver a lot of its experience. Is that something you can comment on?
Not anymore. Kind of thankfully. No, sorry. No, as in, it used to be the Horizon Unity runtime. So even when you were trying to, use what is it? The Perfetto was the performance tool that we used. So you get like a trace out of it, and then you're looking at it through Perfetto. It's like, oh, what is that huge chunk at the bottom? Right, it's just a Unity game running underneath, supporting this like very thin TypeScript game engine on top.
That speaks to its flexibility, I think, that even with an entirely different tech stack and almost, you could classify it as an engine, that it's built on the foundation of Unity. It speaks to its extensibility, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And like a lot of the implementation details of it were like, hey, I know this. Moving to, it's now running on Flex, FLECS. It's like an ECS package, not like an engine.
Entity component system here is what we're referring to. For,
Oh, yeah. But even that, they've taken a very similar approach to Unity, and has been quite easy to work with on that end.
Yep. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so what are you jealous of? What are you jealous of the other engines? In the engine that you work on, what do you wish that it had that the other engines have? So we'll start again maybe with, do you want to jump in and speak from an academic perspective there, or even just from your...
Just as a indie dev, right? Like I jumped in on, I was using UDK prior to Unity and then moved into Unity so long ago. What I liked about Unity was that it was like quick to set up and lightweight, and like compared to Unreal, my experiences with Unreal, I could just get in and start coding and make something. And now I feel a little jealous of Godot because it's now the lightweight engine and like people can just jump in and start making stuff. I think that Unity has been shifting towards a more upfront development model where you start setting things up so that it makes the rest of your development easier. I don't want to set things up. I'm a solo dev. I work in small teams most of the time. I just want to get in there, break stuff really quickly, make something explode. proof of concept of my idea to then show it to the senior devs or the programmers that just have more familiarity with the engine than I, and they can then remake it in whatever system architecture that they want. I'm probably the least technical person on the panel here. I don't care if I have source code control or not, right? It like, if the engine breaks, I'm like, oh, the engine broke, I'll just restart and not do that thing again, right? If I had source control, I wouldn't know what to do with it anyway. So yeah, like Unity being my most used engine, I'm looking towards Godot. I'm like, the grass might be greener.
Well, yeah. I mean, you make a really good point there, Blake. And Nathan, maybe you can comment on this. You mentioned that Godot is moving quickly and it's adding a lot of features at a rapid rate. How long till you think it becomes bloated like other engines? Do you think that will happen, or do you think there's a strategy to mitigate that?
I feel like there's a strategy. Like they're adding lots of stuff, but they're also really careful about what does get added. So I feel like it's probably going to be a while, if ever that's a thing.
Yeah. Is there anything in Godot you miss from other engines? Your silence here is telling.
No.
And that's actually probably a really good answer. And I think that's kind of telling. As a person who's recently worked with Godot, I actually back you on that. I think really it's a robust engine that, you know, you can get a lot done with. So yeah, I think the silence there is telling. Daniel?
Nathan, are you a C++ C programmer?
I've done some C++. Like Godot's written in C++. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's written in C++. Do you need to be a C++ programmer for Godot?
To use Godot? No, there's bindings for everything.
Yeah.
So I use GDScript. Like I love C#, like coming from Unity and like monogame and all that. But GDScript, it's part of the fun. Like it's fast. You just type stuff and it just works. It's deeply integrated into the engine, so you can like everything is tightly like connected. So
yeah, that's cool. That's very cool.
it is just fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel like you mentioned Godot script, and there's a whole point here to talk on with like how do people today get into engines? Because once upon a time it was Unity and it was fast and accessible, and you didn't need to, you know, like Unreal was very locked away to people who wanted to develop games. Today, like things like Godot script might actually ease the way in for new developers, or maybe they'll turn them away because, you know, people with games experience are into C#. C++ is a more difficult language to learn. How do you guys feel that the tech choices affect the ease of uptake for new developers for each respective engine?
I feel like perception's a big thing there. Like the biggest thing I hear against GDScript is it's only used in Godot, which is sort of true, but like if you're a software engineer with yourself, it doesn't matter what you learn. Like you step back far enough and everything is the same.
Yep.
So like anything you learn is an extra perspective you can learn.
Yep.
Like I remember everyone was really into Haskell a few years ago, and you don't make things in Haskell, you just learn Haskell.
Right. Daniel, I think you maybe have when you step back, everything looks the same, but when you get really close, it all looks very different. And there's no problem in software development that can't be solved by removing another layer of abstraction. As a person who works or has worked in the past at those lowest layers, how do you feel that measures up? Do you think that that's a good thing or a bad thing for adoption? Do you feel like we're getting away from the roots of game development by having that amount of abstraction in engines?
No, I don't think we're getting away from the roots of game development. That's always been about creativity. And I think game engines in particular have always enabled a new tier of people to be able to be creative and express the products, the things that they want to express through entertainment. So more abstraction, if it equals more people, we're just embracing those roots just in a broader way.
So recently we've seen things like Horizon is one example of a huge amount of abstraction that goes on top of engines. The same has happened in Unreal with things like UEFN. Across the industry, we're seeing a move towards a much greater degree of accessibility, but at the same time, a drop in quality as the number of people who can approach and develop games increases. The bar for what a game needs to be goes down a lot to some extent. But at the same time, maybe that doesn't matter because ultimately it matters if it's fun or not. Does anyone have anything to add about how that's affecting their engines and the state of play?
Sebastian, they said the same thing when game engines came out. People were writing their own code to do the rendering, to handle the input, and I mean, there's a lot of engine programmers who were engine programmers who are no longer their tech programmers or their performance programmers. It's just the next level of that kind of thing going on. I think it's important to consider performance. It's important to consider quality, but that's also very subjective on the quality point of view. There's some very successful, very fun games. If you looked at it from a purely surface level, might be aesthetically poorer quality than something like Gears of War or whatever the latest, greatest title is, of Baldur's Gate 3 or something, but still great games and have a lot of depth to them. So they're all very subjective.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really interesting take, Daniel, and I'd be inclined to agree. Does anyone else from the panel want to weigh in? I mean, Unity was recently integrated into UEFN as well, so now even Unity games can be published there, and the scope and quality of those games is changing a lot.
Just on scope and quality, some of the highest grossing games have been the ugliest thing you've ever seen.
And there's a trend in the industry towards, like, I mean, Friendslop is one example. Those independent games where it's a single developer making some, to quote, it's scuffed experience that people absolutely love. How do you guys feel that the industry is changing, and how are games supporting or hindering that type of development?
Look, if games are bringing people together, that's a good thing. And if it's easy enough for people to have a good time making something that other people enjoy, that's great. The bar, as you were saying, has come way down for people to get into the industry. And that means that we have so many more people who can express themselves. It also means that our marketplaces are very full.
Yeah.
And it can be, the more games that come out on any given day, any given hour, that has real consequences for discoverability. You may be someone's perfect game. You may have made the thing that 10 people, that is their perfect experience. But realistically, you still have to sell a certain number to make the money investment back. If you don't need to make any money from it, more power to you. The commercial realities of these things, they get scary, which is why a lot of the time people want to be in early on a platform so that they can get that delicious early adopter enthusiasm.
We've seen, like with that bar lowering too, a lot of knockoffs, and they also flood the marketplace. I've seen games get released that are good games, and in incredibly short amount of times, XYZ version of that game, ABC version of that game, and that also really hurts discoverability, and it dilutes the effort and the hard work that real developers have put in. So I guess that's a negative of making development easier.
So on Steam last year, there were 20,000, just on Steam, 20,000 new games released. We're on track to break 30,000 at the end of this year. That 20,000 represented an 8% growth in the total market share, where the previous greatest growth had been 3.5%. So in terms of games getting released, that is one thing that we're facing, and the way that engines are accommodating this kind of development, it really changes a lot. And this does open the door for a conversation here about the elephant in the room, which is AI and AI workflows and how that's changing how games are made. Unity, for instance, is really embracing it. Some other engines are slower to take this up, Godot being one example where that's the case. But so let's address the elephant in the room. How do we all feel about the way that AI is changing the game engines and how games are developed?
So Godot is drowning in AI slop on GitHub at the moment.
There's a GitHub repo where you can prompt an AI game, and in half an hour it will build it for you with no. Do you know this
Well,
one?
this, no, I haven't seen that, but this is people submitting nonsense PRs that they didn't even know what it does. They don't know anything. The commit is written by AI, the code is written by AI, the review is written by AI. And as soon as they're scrutinized at all, the person goes into a massive rage going, how dare you gatekeep me? And it's like, you don't even know what you're doing at all.
Yeah. I
Like,
think we
at
need
least
to
read
change
what it did.
We need to normalize hitting reject on AI PRs. I think that's absolutely, yeah. Daniel, your position is quite high in terms of like a technical, it's the highest technical position in the largest game studio in Australia. It'd be really interesting to see your perspective on this.
Thanks, Sebastian.
Sorry if I overqualified you there, but I think that's a fair thing to say.
I mean, the Godot thing that we see with AI, it's super painful when it takes things beyond accessibility and it's just a thing, right? And that's where the AI slot thing came from. At the same time, I've seen incredibly amazing things come from AI. I've used it for myself for research into fields that I would have no other way to learn about, and it helps me learn very quickly and also dial in very quickly to specific points within very broad topics. So I think in the right hands and used sensibly, it can be a pretty incredible thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those platforms where they are trying to lower the bar are integrating this a lot. I think I even heard that Meta Horizon had pipelines where you could prompt environments into existence. How did that affect your experience developing on that engine, like on that platform?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how much I can say.
Well, yeah, maybe we can talk around that. Just in general, how do you feel AI will adjust the way that smaller, simpler experiences are created?
I'm running the mental math. You can hear the cog in my brain turning. It certainly does do some things quite well, quite fast. And it is in the hands of the driver, what it does, how it integrates with other existing systems. It cannot, maybe one day, but at the very least, it doesn't do that sort of like strategy very well. So you really like have to know what you're doing. For me personally, I don't like fighting the machine. I find it frustrating when I'm like, I'm trying to get it to do something, and it doesn't, I mean, yeah, like, mea culpa. It's because I didn't like describe what I wanted in as much detail as I should have. But at a certain point, I'm like, it's just faster if I write it, man. And I am like, I mean, it's like real time, you're seeing it getting better. And so the like weighting of that, of like, at what point is it just faster for me to do it myself, is very rapidly turning. But I don't know, as someone that's like, what, like 8 years into doing all of this, I'm like, it's not, yeah, it'll still be a few years yet before we get there.
Did the different panelists on the different engines feel that picture is different for their respective engines?
I haven't really engaged much with the AI integration into Unity at this point. A lot of the QT's stance on AI is largely around, does it impact the learning experience or learning outcomes of the unit? And a lot of our learning outcomes are, can you learn to code by yourself kind of thing? Can you make a game by yourself and make a game within a team? And that like undermines the learning outcomes. Coders will be then like going onto Stack Overflow previously, but sometimes they'll like use AI to help them do coding in the later units. But certainly earlier on in their degrees, they need to actually understand what an if statement is and what the variables are. And even if they're not coders, they're sort of required to go through some early units to learn the programming. AI use is very emphatically discouraged. And once they get later on and they know how to code and they can work in a team, they make a game by themselves, then they can start using AI to supplement their own knowledge and their own skills. But whenever it undermines the learning outcomes, then it becomes an issue for the university.
So Patrick made a really good point about AI being powerful in the hands of a person who knows to do what they're directing the AI to do. Do you want to jump in there, Josh?
I was about to say something pretty much on that line. I could ask, there are AI LLM integrations into Unreal that I could use. I can't use at Gameloft because of AI policies, but I could use if I wanted to in a personal capacity, and I could ask them to do many things and it would give me a good baseline. Like if I wanted to build a warehouse out of existing prefab geometry, it could do that. It would probably get it reasonably wrong. But if I only wanted a gray box to get the general representation of it, it'd probably do. If I wanted a component or a movement pattern that is well described, that is something that would essentially be boilerplate or that would take me time to do, but would be a solved problem that I would just have to pull back out of my memory, it'd do that faster than me because that it's good at that. But I already need to know the pieces I need and kind of how I want them to fit together.
Yep. So there's an interesting thing where junior developers, they can prompt an AI and it will fill those gaps that you described, where it's like, I know what needs to be done here. I'll get the AI to do it for me. You're left with the result where you understand the outcome. If a junior developer does this, they have the outcome but don't understand how it came to be there. And they didn't have to fail in order to learn the skills to get to the position where they can actually do something useful with that outcome. And we bounce this back to Blake. There's a risk that juniors won't be able to, if they lean on these tools by taking the short road, they won't become mids and then they won't become seniors. And there'll be the seniors who know how to use the AI and the juniors that prompt things into existence without creating quality. How do you feel like, is university trying to address this? If there's policies that prevent them from using AI, is that the solution or?
Yeah, so university is absolutely concerned about that exact thing. The current onus tends to fall onto the tutors to be like, are you using AI? Well, you don't ask them, you have to like inspect their work. And it's like, what does this part here do? I'm currently teaching into a unit that if you prompt the AI to write you some code, it'll write it in a previous language that we just don't allow. And so if we see swing code getting written for these Java applications, we're like, okay, we know you used AI to generate this code for you because like, who writes in Swing anymore? We've asked you to write in JavaFX kind of thing.
Yep.
So there's some aspects where we can kind of build in some safeguards for the teaching teams to be able to identify when they're using it. And we can also just have one-on-one conversations in order to gauge their understanding of the code. But certainly there's I guess, top-down pressure to rejig assignments in order to make sure that, like, you have to, I can't remember the exact wording of it, but they are considered real person assignments. So there needs to be some verification that the student has definitely done the work. That is usually a one-on-one conversation with the tutor in a workshop where you ask them about the work that they've done. There's a few other types of assignments that can come through, but there is certainly a top-down pressure to bring the assignments into the modern world, modern AI world.
Yeah, Daniel, I saw you nodding along to this question. It's an interesting because like academically, it's a big problem to create policy to handle it. I'm wondering, it sounds as though Gameloft has a policy that completely rules it out. Okay. So there was some iffy. I'd be curious about your perspective on that, and specifically how juniors with AI being like a multiplier for what a person can do. Some juniors can make a mess. If you empower them with AI, they can make a much larger mess. Ruling it out entirely is probably a bad move at the same time. So it's, yeah.
It's certainly been a game changer in many ways.
Unintended?
Like some things, pieces of tech I would consider myself a junior at. Like there's something I don't know or know very little about. And Google would help, Stack Overflow would help. But I always found there was some maximum threshold to how much they could help. And being able to dig deeper with AI, I think it gives you, like a lot of you guys would have used profilers before, using something like Pix or something versus like just a standard scope profiler. You can identify something that you're interested in. You can drill in, zoom, drill in. And I found AI super useful for that kind of thing. I think a junior engineer, if they operate that way, they're going to learn a lot. They might get to a point where they don't really understand what they've done, but if their intention is to learn, they're going to get better and it's going to help them learn. It's just another tool to help them learn in that regard. And it's very different, and it's mutually exclusive in a lot of ways to just say, hey, gen this thing. Like they're doing it in their classroom, they're just genning this and handing it off. I mean, that's a whole different philosophy for how you want to live your life, all right, in this industry versus using it as a tool to help you become better at what it is you want to do. So I think, again, I think it can be very useful in the right hands and with the right train of thought behind using it.
Yeah, just following on from that, I think that the academic space is very different from like an industry, a workplace kind of thing. Having to clear my throat. But I saw a report recently where they did a study on people's usage of AI, specifically students' usage of AIs, and they're using it to learn more than they're using it to just solve the problems for themselves. And yeah, that is the kind of way that, at least as educators, we want to see students using their stuff. They want to, their pursuit of the learning is more important than the actual assignment or whatever problem they're currently trying to solve. And especially for like programmers, where it's like they actually care, like the programming part is the thing that they care about and the thing that they are pursuing in their career. Some of the designers, some of the artists they don't care about the code. They'll grab something off of Stack Overflow in the same way that they would grab something off of out of the AI. But certainly the ones that care about the learning outcomes and becoming better, AI is a massive boon to them and can not replace, but take over some of the workload that a senior or a staff programmer might be spending on them, and they can then come to them with a higher proficiency with the code base or whatever language it is.
Just hearing that, I really want to impress how important that it still will be to have those human mentoring relationships, because if the AI, the LLM can give them a bunch of information that they would otherwise have sought from a mentor, that doesn't mean they don't still need a mentor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So when we kind of earlier before this talk said we'd create a boundary around AI because it's very tempting to take that and run with it. And we've got half an hour left for the panel. And so what I'll do is I'll say that was really, really interesting. Now I think we'll try and get back because, AI and engines, they are related subjects, but the talk is about engines. And so I'll take that left turn now, and we'll now take a look at how engines can, the different business models that sit behind engines, because that's one big thing that really makes the different engines that we're discussing distinct from one another. So the second elephant in the room might be Unreal and policy changes that made recently. You mentioned Godot's seen a large uptick, and I think that is in many ways in response to monetization policy changes that those engines have made. So maybe we'll start with Unity, and we kind of established that it used to be something very accessible. how is the state of the engine today as you guys see it?
Yeah, I'll jump in on Unity's side. None of it matters to me because I'm earning less than all of the thresholds, right? So yeah, that, like a lot of the business model stuff just doesn't apply. Like as far as choosing one engine over another one, just doesn't really factor into the decision making among myself and my friends and a lot of the students as well. It's because we're at the point of like, especially my students trying to learn the engine, so it just doesn't matter. Like, if I earn $1 million, I'm going to have to pay for it, or what are the other ones are. It's far more about like, can I express my skills in this? Can I quickly learn it? Once they're getting to the point where they are taking that into consideration, they are beyond my scope. Now they would be considering it as like an indie project rather than a student project, and perhaps the rest of the panel can speak to that more once the actual thresholds have been reached and the business case needs to be made.
As a student, like absolutely, yeah, it's very unlikely that they can produce the kind of quality in the work that they do that means they'll be facing the problems of monetization. But they are still building a baseline of skills that will make them take certain decisions as their skills improve that might cause them to face that dilemma. And I think this is where Godot's really grown, and perhaps to some extent even Unreal. So let's hear from some of the Unreal and Godot perspectives. I don't mind who wants to jump in there. I think, Josh, you look like you're ready to.
Yeah, sure. One of the reasons that we picked Unreal for Phantom Abyss was the business case. At the time, it really appeared to me that Unity and Unreal had each other's business cases, that the way that they were structured felt like Unreal was the way to go for an indie, because the license, it didn't cost you anything until quite a high number.
Yeah.
We did end up negotiating for a different a commercial contract with them, because we had to sell a certain amount to make the money back on a 4-year development. So you just project that and you know, well, we need to make this much money, therefore we're over this threshold of income, and you can make those calculations about which is going to suit you better.
Yeah. And how about Godot? I mean, you were talking about the uptick, and how do you think policy changes of other engines have affected that recently?
There was definitely a massive uptick. Was it last September before, the runtime feed thing? Unity shipped the bed for like the 3rd time every 2 years. It's like a cycle. They get worse.
Yeah, does anybody want to add a bit of context for the audience about why they feel Unity's behaving in this way?
It's hard to ascribe motive to someone else, but it does appear that it was more important for Unity for some reason to bring in money at a lower threshold of their developers and from more of their developers than they otherwise would have been.
Yep.
Yeah, and there was, I think before that exact debacle as well, what was it, where they like cranked up their pro license? It was like 5 times it, like overnight. And I remember, this was like before I was at Playside, just like in the office, we're like, oh no, why is Unity doing this? It seems so short-sighted. I mean, yeah, maybe they needed the money, but like, probably better ways to do that.
Well, you know, that does raise a question as to like policy choices of the different engines and the stability that you can feel and the confidence that you can feel you have when you go into developing a new project, and also whether the decision to choose a particular engine or to do it yourself, like when those different things make sense. I mean, there's one question there, and the PTSD from all the different panelists about DIY engines, it's real, but people still do it. People still make engines. And so I'll put this question to the panel. When is it right to do it? Mostly, I think this is for Daniel. When is it right to build your own engine, and when is the right decision to use a game engine off the shelf? And I will also, I'll bounce this off Nathan, having built his own engine as well.
Yeah, look, I think it would be a difficult case to make to build your own engine today. There would be exceptions, long roadmaps, like 5-6 year kind of thing. You might want to invest in it. It's changed a lot because Unreal and Unity are so accessible and so powerful, and so cross-platform and so much support and so many plugins. It's a much harder case to make. Maybe as an indie, if you want to become a lower level developer, if you want to be focused on performance, memory, maybe running on new platforms like we kind of saw with the Quest and Magic Leap devices, and going back a little bit further, early iPhones and Androids and things like that, own engines are the way to go, because the bigger engines haven't had time to catch up. They move slowly into new markets. Exceptions there too. They might be a launch partner, so they're there and ready to go. The engine of mine that we released, we shipped like 12, 15 games through a whole bunch of studios, Gameloft Brisbane too.
What were some of those games?
All mobile games, so they're all through iOS. We had My Little Pony, one of my favourites, also the favourites of 30-year-olds and 12-year-olds. It was a very good game. It's a very good, fun IP. Ice Age, Avalanche, Adventures, a whole bunch of games. The list goes on and on. These were developed early days when there was no option really to ship Unreal products on mobile. There was no Unity on mobile either at that point, and if the support was there, it was quite bad. So really the decision was we don't ship high-performing games on those platforms, and we stick with what was out already, which was card games and things like that, or we actually build something ourselves and spend the money and invest the people into developing that to a point where it's actually not going to cause PTSD, or at least that we're going to minimize how much PTSD and just where the therapist feels. The interesting thing with the custom engines, the proprietary engines, and even though I think I'm extrapolating a bit here, but from what I understand, even the best of them still have, they're not on par with something like Unreal, with the tool chain and the tooling and the DCC integration and like the external asset editors that people are making, like Max or Maya or whatever. There's still problems in that, and that's part of the reason why those projects take a bit longer to ship and why you hear the PTSD thing. For me, the thing that makes an engine the best is how well it can service the creatives. The performance and all that is kind of necessary and intrinsic to delivering an engine, but it's that how can you enable designers, artists, audio engineers, and everyone else who contributes to the game to not get PTSD and get their assets and content in the game, and iterate as well. When you develop a proprietary engine, you're so focused on building that engine out, and the renderer, the tech, the audio support, and everything else that goes with it, that you kind of forget that, or you can forget that. And the people who hold the budgets often focus on that as well, and forget that actually there needs to be a whole pipeline and tool chain here. So maybe you guys could agree or disagree with me that the engine itself is probably okay in most cases, but it's that how do you successfully work with everyone else and allow them to be super productive?
Well, that is, yeah, I think that's one really important concern. And I think a reason that many studios that work with custom engines move to mainstream and mainline engines is like hiring and bringing creatives and bringing like developers on board, there's a big onboarding process there. And I know that's a real challenge for a bigger studio hiring. As I think Jamie asked me to shout out the fact that PlaySide is hiring for a senior developer role right now, by the way.
Absolutely. If you guys want a job on the Gold Coast, and we're also open to Brisbane, like hit me up after this. We're looking for senior engineers.
Yep, absolutely. But the question there is like, you know, how with hiring today, and this is we need to start to close it out so we have time for Q&A. But a question here would be, both from the perspective of a large studio and from an indie team, what engine would you choose to build your next project on today? And I know this is affected by, like, you know, how long is a piece of string and what are you building, but this is a personal, take it personally, think of what you would like to create and answer with as much of your own, you know, heart and soul about what you'd like to do and your ambitions.
Yeah, the answer is definitely genre dependent. That's where I would go with this. Like if I want to build something that's in XR of some kind, I don't know that Unreal is the right choice. But if I want to make a shooter, I'm going to go with Unreal every time. I'm thinking about making something in the vein of Panzer Dragoon and Star Fox, and I could probably make that in Unreal. So
there are some subjects here that we're not going to have time to get to, including like hardware and the movements of hardware in the future. I think Unreal, for instance, is going to be facing challenges with the rise of handheld devices and you know, devices with less compute. So I imagine that's probably a thing that would factor into the accessibility of something like a Star Fox game.
yeah, absolutely. You have to look at your target platforms. If you want to make something for PC, Unreal and Unity, I've got you covered, and Godot's got you covered. If you, for some reason, want to make a game for a Mega Drive, then you can't use any of those.
I did that a couple of weeks ago with a proprietary engine. You can do it, no worries.
I don't think I need to ask you, Nathan, about what engine you choose.
Was thinking maybe you. No, I'm joking. Like, I'm not making hyper realistic stuff, so I don't need Unreal. Everything else, Godot's got you covered.
Yeah, nice. How about you, Blake, from an academic perspective? Ever considered internally making a shift away from teaching students with Unity?
So when the runtime fee thing happened, we got a lot of pushback from the students being like, well, when are you going to start teaching Unreal? When are you going to start teaching something else? Universities move very slowly. Everything that we teach has to be so foundational that it's relevant minimum 3 years later. Otherwise, you graduate your degree with information that doesn't matter anymore. But most of the time, it's at least 7 years, at least 10 years. To a certain extent, in your final year, you can start learning some of the more cutting edge stuff that'll be relevant as soon as you graduate. But in terms of what I personally would use, I'd stick with Unity. If I wanted to smash out a game really quick, if I had a bit of time to learn, I'd probably spin up something in Godot. I've got some friends that work in the Go space that I could bounce some ideas off of. But if a student's asking me, I tell them to use Unity, or if they're willing to do some upfront learning, jump into Unreal. That's where the jobs are right now. Slay the Spire just released to a massive success. So
on Godot too.
In Godot, exactly. And so perhaps in the future, more Godot jobs are going to start popping up, and those opportunities are going to be available to the students. But until that happens, there's no argument to make to the university to be like, switch all your content over to an engine that doesn't have any jobs available for it right now. We've started integrating Unreal into some of the units, but all of our content from first and second year is currently still in Unity, and that's what they know going into, at least the designers and the programmers know going into Capstone. And so we've got some industry partners like Gameloft that are like, make your Capstone game in Unreal Engine. They'll have some experience from the couple of units spread throughout where they'll have been introduced to Unreal Engine already, but then Capstone is an opportunity for them to like really dive into it, really express their creativity and their game design skills in it. And a lot of our artists are already taught in Unreal Engine because they're going through a film and animation style major, so that sort of integration works really easily for them as well. So personally, Unity Godot, to the students, Unity Unreal.
How about you, Patrick? If you were going to start a new project, what would you build it on?
I mean, I want to try Godot. No, like, I don't know, Godot looks so fun. You got me. You got me. You win. No, especially with like how quickly it's moving and just the whole community around it. What a refreshing change of pace. How invigorating. But yeah, I will say currently I am just trying to give Unreal a go as well before I look over Godot. Mostly because I've been defeated by Unreal so many times of like, what is it? There is an Unreal way to do that. Why are you doing it? I'm like, oh, I guess I'll go look it up now.
Don't fight the engine. You have to do it the way they want you to.
Yeah, no, really. And like, yeah, I'm like a laggard in all senses, but truly coming from Unity over to Unreal, I've bounced off so many times. But yeah, trying to learn to just like let it wash over me. I'm like, thank you, Tim Sweeney.
So
that's that.
One thing I actually found very interesting, Daniel, was at the start of the talk, you said we've used all of those engines in some form at Playside. And that's interesting because that means it includes some Godot somewhere. Is that the case?
Yeah, let me clarify. So we don't actually use Godot. It comes across my desk every now and then for whatever that reason might be. If we're going to spin up a new project, and I think the target was going to be retail, console, PC, and we had a whole bunch of people working on it, and it's going to be a multi-year project. What we want to target is minimizing risk, and we know Unity and we know Unreal minimize risk. As much as my personal wants would be, hey, let's build a 20, 30, 40 person engine team. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, off we go, Unreal Unity for those cases. If we think about prototyping and getting quick builds out, which would be more the indie vibe, we can use anything. It doesn't have to be, and this is kind of how we touch on Godot or people's own bits of tech or other engines. Like there's things out there I can think of like Love and JavaScript-based engines and Construct and all sorts of things that you can quickly whip something up. We don't care what you use or what our devs use to do that. Just do it in whatever works.
So as you find yourself in a pretty senior technical role at a big studio, it'd be an interesting question to ask, studio aside, on a personal level, would you ever make another engine yourself? Or would you ever want to try something like Godot for a personal project? Or do you simply just not have the time these days? Or
Time's a lot more limited these days. I wouldn't make another engine because I still make my own current engine, and it's going to be pretty hard to beat.
that actually was another question. It's like, are you still working on that engine, and do you imagine you'll ever ship something with it?
There was a whole bunch of things that happened timing-wise, right place, right time, right set of hardware that made it happen. So it would probably never happen again. It was a bit of a
unique time in history then.
Yeah. But I still develop it, and I mostly use it these days for just exploring new tech because I'm so proficient in it. I can do something super, super fast. But yeah.
Yep. Okay, so last question before we turn it over to Q&A. What do we think the different engines are going to look like 5 years from now? Let's start with Godot, because that's changing quick.
I have no idea. Exciting.
Yeah.
I think probably way better 3D stuff. Everyone complains about 3D, which has gotten really good recently, but like better. I don't know. Maybe it's coming from Unreal next.
Yeah, I actually, I know this isn't about me, but I've been trying out Godot on streams recently and doing a 3D project and being I agree with you. It's fun. It feels like Unity 2.5 and 3, like back in the day when it was all fast and you make a change and it's instantly there and you don't wait for loading bars and all of that. So yeah, from my own standpoint, I think I am trying new projects with Godot just to see how it works. And I think, I'd even entertain it at a smaller studio, not like Playside, but in a studio like Actuator might actually use something like that on a project in the future. But yeah, okay, this has been an absolutely fantastic panel. I really appreciate all the, can we get a round of applause for the panelists, please? And so we're about to have some notes from online. So there's a number of Q&A questions that have been accumulating, but let's start with the audience. Do we have any questions from the audience for the panelists? Right in front.
More just general opinion. What about Roblox?
Sorry.
I have no idea why you're moving. Okay.
I've done this before.
What about Roblox? And in a similar way, UEFM? Because it's not on the list, but they are being used for a lot of games.
They definitely are. I don't know that I want to take money out of those children's hands.
Wow. I work a lot with Touch Designer, so Python, right? So live, generative, audio visuals, and I know there are plugins for both Unity and Unreal. Which do you think would be worth investing, learning, if you know anything about how the engine works? Because they're both quite complex, so.
This isn't really my space, but I have opinions on it, so I'll share. I think that all of the students that that at QUT that go through the animation major do their VFX visualization sort of stuff in Unreal. I think that.
But real time? Yeah.
The assignment is essentially they have a music video and they have to animate a little character and then render it, do some real-time VFX over the top of it as well. But then they also have to render that out as a video. Given Unreal's, it is a powerhouse, right? It has so many tools available for a wide range of fields beyond just game development. I think it has the edge over Unity in that particular space for that particular purpose. But it looked like the other panel members were going to have something to add in, so I will let them jump in.
I agree. I think Unreal was set up for post-production. It's set up for cinematics, Niagara, all that sort of stuff. Seems like that sort of space that you're looking at. Yeah, I'll probably go that way. It's like if a VFX house kind of thing is going to be adopting it, they'll be looking at that for production level stuff. Anybody else?
You mentioned different languages like GDScript, C# and C++, but what are your thoughts on the visual scripting? Godot removed theirs with 3 to 4, and Unity added Bolt, and reportedly Expedition 33 was written entirely in Blueprints.
I love Blueprints. I think it's amazing. Node-based coding is pretty good. It's logically almost the same as coding. I think you can break down further. You see like blocks development and stuff like that. It's Blueprints to that to another level, and you can optimize it as well if you want to go in and convert it to code. You can.
There's, I think, a plugin that adds the visual scripting stuff back in, and they left it. The shader language still has the visual scripting stuff in it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not big of a fan of visual scripting. It takes up too much space on the screen.
Yeah, it can. And I find I'm always moving the nodes, like a little bit right, a little bit. It becomes artistic.
It's much easier to have a set of standards when you're in text. Like, you know where your braces should be. There's no, or could it be 1 pixel higher? So the visual scripting in Unreal is amazing. And I have no idea how Expedition 33 could have shipped an entire game that size in Blueprint. There is, Unreal has the ability to, under the hood, convert things secretly to C++. They call it nativizing. On Phantom Abyss, I'd done some kind of structure in the code that it hated, and it would not do that for me. So there are risks. It does come with a fee of your runtime performance. If you're running on a PlayStation 5, that may not matter.
From an academic perspective, I've met so many people that just bounce off of text-based code immediately, right? And not through lack of trying either. They spend weeks upon weeks actively trying to engage with Python or C++ or C#, and either they fail the units, unfortunately, or they just don't have an affinity for it, or they don't want to have an affinity for it, right? But visual-based coding is something that they can, or at least some of them can get their head around, can grasp onto, and they actually like the visual nature of it. I would even go so far as to say it's less so any kind of aptitude or competency-based aspect of it. They just have a more natural affinity for the visual nature of the code rather than reading through the text-based version of it. So personally, not my style. I know enough of it to do what I need to do and teach what I need to teach. I'll always jump back into text-based code, but I think there's like absolutely an area for it, especially for people who just don't like the text-based.
Real quick, I just want to add that I will give node-based code to my designers, and they can touch what the coders think that they should be allowed to touch.
We have a lot of challenges with designers, artists, writing code in blueprints and trying to figure out how we deal with standardizing what they can write and very much trying to hold them to the same levels of like code review that we would engineers. You know, super interesting thing about blueprints, if you wind back prior to blueprints, these node editors started, as far as I can remember, building materials and shaders and things like that, which are just code, right? And data. So it's an evolution of that. And like we touched a bit on how AI has made things more accessible. I think blueprints and node things have just made it more accessible as well.
Not at the back, anybody over here? We will have to try and be quick. We actually have a lot of questions online.
Cool. Hey. You mentioned that it's also super important about like the developer ecosystem and the pipeline and all that sort of stuff. And so we sort of haven't really talked about a lot of the features of the engines that are sort of peripheral to the actual editor itself, you know, just the 3D viewport. So I guess from that point of view, are there some of those extra functions, like if we're talking Unity, you know, they've got the whole like monetization thing and analytics and Unity version control. Are there any of those peripheral features that are kind of like deal breakers for you that have locked you into that ecosystem? And I guess this is more of in a commercial context. And you know, Seb, this is a good question for you too, because you know you deal with this as well. Yeah, can you talk to that at all?
Yeah, it's a super important, it's a great question. It's very, very important when you're adopting any kind of technology that you're going to depend on, that you do your due diligence, that stuff's going to stick around. And, you know, that you have a backup plan, you know, what's going to change, like renderware going way back disappeared. There was a whole bunch of studios who were using it. EA came in and bought it and closed it down, and suddenly all these developers didn't have game engines anymore. I mean, Unity spread their wings a lot and picked up a lot of, it started covering a lot of different sets of technology. I think they were trying to follow, I'm just guessing, but I think they were trying to follow Unreal's model of being all-encompassing, can do everything through here. Through this game engine. Be careful with your tech choices and always have a backup plan ready to go. Does that answer your question?
And I think Daniel gave a really good answer there. And to be honest, I was buffering the next questions from chat. So we'll leave it there and we'll move on to the next one here. We actually have I'm so sorry, chat. to the 75 people who are in the chat and the 10 questions we have, we're probably not going to get time for all of them. So thank you for those questions. I've picked a few outstanding ones, and it probably makes a point here about the perspective that these people are coming from. I think there is a lot of aspiring game developers here in that chat, and so one of the questions here we have is, and if I can just quickly get each of the speakers to answer this, at what point was the exact moment when and where you decided to go into the industry, and what was the specific person or event that helped you that gave you the push to do that?
Sure that for many of us, and it's a common story that I've heard, is like we just played games as a kid or played games as an adolescent or something, and decided that we were good enough with computers that we could just turn that into a thing. When I was a tiny child, I thought I wanted to drive trains. Knowing what a train engineer job is like now, I would never. But yeah, then you get to, 12, and you have a better understanding of the world, and you can make some better decisions, like make some code.
I don't know if anyone remembers Click and Play.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Oh my God. Hell yeah.
Yeah, playing around with that, I'm just like, I could do this. And I did do that.
Borrowing Kingdom Hearts 2 from Blockbuster, of course. Does it need to be anything more than that? I don't know. It's fun. I like making games. I like playing games. I hope all of us loves games here. I heard.
I had a Commodore 64, which is an old computer. Played a lot of games on it. That's all I did. You had one of those, did you? It was. I used to play this game called Delta. It was a pew shoot 'em up game. And then somehow I got hold of a cartridge for it called an action replay, and it essentially let me break into the runtime of the code and watch the assembly code essentially updating in real time. And I was like, what the hell? Oh, what is this? Right? And that was the beginning for me. I spent a long time trying to get into becoming a professional game developer, but had no idea how to do it. So I just wrote code. And somewhere along the line, I met some people in Adelaide who introduced me to some people through university. They had to deal with Ratbat Games, and that was my break. I met them, and I met my people, and everything changed for me.
I would say for myself, it was less of a defining point in my life and more just a continual choice towards video games. There was one point where I was like, I could go and study accounting or law or like do literally any other degree that might make me money. And I'm like, no, I will choose the suffer route and I'll be creative or a designer and I'll go down that path. And so it was just a continuously choosing to do video games over the course of my life.
So this next question might be more for the people inside of AAA and also potentially academics. The question here is, what is the level of quality and how much training do you expect from a developer before they can apply for and be successful in getting a senior AAA role? That's the question here. I think it's like, how do you get along that path and find your way there? And I think, yeah, that I know I could tell you what Josh is going to say, but go ahead.
I mean, you said a senior AAA role?
That's right.
You're going to want to have multiple shipped titles of some reasonable quality and be able to point to what part of that is yours.
So less about training and more about what you've produced.
Training is good. If you come out of a training institution, that can give you a lot of foundation in what you'll need to get on the path. I wouldn't say that if you stay in academia and get a master's, that makes you necessarily further towards a senior role than someone who's got a lower qualification and then been in industry for that same amount of time. Depending on if you are, like if it's a highly specialized technical mathematical role and you really need a theoretical understanding, then maybe that's good for you. But we want to see proven track record for a senior role.
Absolutely. Daniel, do you have something to add? I think you will probably have some valuable perspective.
It's pretty tough to get in as an engineer anyway. I don't want to speak for other disciplines, but there's like...
Making games is hard.
It is hard. Senior engineer for me would be someone who's been working in the industry or at least around it for somewhere around 6 or 7 years. You might only ship one game in 6 or 7 years in this. You might ship none. You might have worked on 3 and shipped none. You might have shipped 3, you might have shipped 10 in the same time. It completely depends on where you are, who you're working for, what the publisher's feeling, any kind of crazy pivots that are going on in the world. But I think 7 years of good, solid engineering. The best thing you can do to become senior or be like senior in your own mind and in the eyes of others, your peers that you're working with, is just write a lot as an engineer. Again, write a lot of code. Some of the best, it's not all completely exclusive to, but some of the best engineers who write tech in their own time. They make their own games. They work in crews outside of ours making games. Always writing code is the best way to do it. And you can accelerate your progress to senior. Some people I know have just rocketed up the ranks and they haven't got 7 years, and I would look at them as the seniors, but they spend so much energy skilling up in their craft.
Yeah, fantastic. Alex Stormwood, I think I paraphrased your question there, but I hope that we got that answer. I think we've answered one by Kobe, so we're just for the sake of time, we're going to skip that second question there, Kobe. We've got one more here from God of War. So are there any engines that are currently in use that you think may be outdated in the near future? And are there any engines you would say don't use to build on for new projects in terms of modern needs and the direction that the game industry will be moving?
It seems like all 3 of the ones that were on display here are reasonable choices. Godot doesn't seem like it's going to be defunct in any short period of time, so that's really good. The more competition there is between these engines, the better it is for everyone. And Unreal and Unity have such deep industry ties that barring catastrophe, they're both going to be around for a long time and going to be ready day one for the next generation of consoles whenever they happen.
Yep.
I feel like Unity survived enough catastrophes. It's probably going to be around forever.
Not going anywhere. Yeah, absolutely. So I know we said we draw a box around AI, but we've got one more question here, and we'll probably make that the last one, so everybody here in person can actually go get some pizza. I know we've gone a little bit over time, so thank you for everybody's patience with that. At the rate that you've seen AI improving in terms of the quality of code and generation, what do you think the future looks like?
Nobody's currently paying what it actually costs. So I feel like once that kicks in, the future may be very different.
Yeah, we just saw one of the biggest showpiece features of AI, the Sora video generation, be pulled because the cost is not being passed on to the consumer. Do people want to use these tools? Absolutely. Will they use them as tools and often as toys if they don't have to pay what they cost really to use? Yes. Do I want them to entirely go away? No. I think that there's, like I was saying earlier, a lot of space for them to repeat solved problems, and then allow us to be our best creative selves.
I'm going to go with a hot take. I think I agree. Like, they're not paying what they're actually cost to use, and so in the next 10 to 20 years, I think it's going to. We currently have like massive monolithic kind of AI systems that people engage with. I'm going to predict that it goes local, right? Like, each individual corporation might have their own local AI that they allow their workforce to engage with, and all of the hobbyists and people who are both artistically inclined but also code inclined would then be able to put a local version on their own machines and then engage with that in their own way. I have nothing to base that on other than a speculative prediction, but yeah, I think that I can say that, and it's not going to affect me in the future. So.
Well, there's one, I'll just expand on this question a little bit for the next people who answer. Like, technologies like DLSS are changing the way that people engineer, and the requirements for, especially in art, and in terms of optimizing, the way that you build a game may shift dramatically as technologies like this mature. Like, how do we feel that it's going to affect things?
I feel like with RAM shortages and stuff like that at the moment, that's also affecting how you have to optimize things.
Absolutely.
So DLSS is an interesting thing, because you say art, but it's like it's ruining the art in a lot of places. So like,
do you think that's like, if the technology matures and artists make decisions based on the way it will look when the technology's on, do you think they may still get a bit of that control back?
Well, it reminds me of like when people talk about pixel art. Like, pixel art back in the day was designed to work on a CRT, like proper screens, whereas now it's sort of looked at with nostalgia, but you're not looking at what it actually was meant to look like. So maybe it'll end up like that.
Yeah.
Like, it'll create a new art form where you kind of, like you said, engineer it in a way that it will look a certain way when you run it through the filter.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the conversations that we've had tonight were around LLMs, and I feel like generative AI art is like a different set of AI questions in and of itself. Around DLSS 5, I think a lot of people, especially when the generative art AI models initially came out, argued against it from a position of, well, the art doesn't look good. And then the art started looking good, and that sort of argument got undermined. But now with the DLSS 5, the argument that I'm seeing win out online, at least, is this is undermining the creative vision of the person who initially put that out into the world, which I think is a way better argument against DLSS 5 to begin with.
Yep. And we will have to try and keep this short, because now we're almost 15 minutes over the time that we said that we were going to. I think it's been a very interesting conversation, so I hope the crowd doesn't mind. But let's get into some pizza after this.
Yeah, unfortunately, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. AI encode has been a much easier conversation because it's not actively in people's eyes. They aren't seeing it. They aren't seeing all the struggles with it. Even if there were like concerns with integration or extensibility, they don't see it. But when it comes to art, yeah, it's pretty, can we swear? It's pretty fucking uncanny. And even if it does get better, then I start getting concerned of like, yeah, I don't know. There are people that are watching, what was it, that like Fruit Love Island video on TikTok. Oh my God, it makes me want to scream. But there are people that watch and enjoy it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Cat's out the bag, I guess. But I don't know. It's like we have to teach consumers to like be more discerning at a certain point, which is kind of holier than thou. But yeah, it's just going to get better.
All right, excellent. Well, with that, we're going to end the talk. Thank you. Can I please get a round of applause for all of the panelists? That was absolutely fantastic. I just want to reiterate, we'll put those QR codes back up at some point so you guys can loop in, because this, the plan is to make this quarterly. So 4 times a year, we'll have new talks just like this one, with new subjects, which are to be announced. Thank you to everyone who came. If you enjoyed this, tell your friends, because we'd really like to rebuild the in-person community in Brisbane. It's been fantastic. Go grab some pizza, and we'll see you guys next time. And thank you to everyone who showed up online.
Really appreciate it, guys.
One bite.
Doing mini games for television. And the latest Bailey which is just Bailey breaks.
It is weird. It's just like, I know, this much time. It's been really weird.
And as a part of
yeah, it's just like the whole of it doesn't make it. It's just like, yeah. That is weird.
So, yeah, it was just a Friday afternoon.
That's quite one factor.
That makes it seem like a long time.
Yeah. Congratulations.
This is what happens when you.
G'day, do you mind if we swing in and say hello? Hey, I'm Laura. Lovely to meet you.
Yeah.
I just, it's funny because, like, as soon as I saw you, I knew your face and your name because of, like, you're half-break. It's old school, and I feel like I just missed you because I started in 2015, and I think you were some of, like, the really OG people, so it's just, like, really amazing. I know that sounds a bit dorky, but
I was there for Patrick's acting in a voluntary.
Yes, oh man, like what a time. Just, and it's like really the scat, like I love to be in one thing. It's just like, like what a huge impact you've had on my life. Like, just, having worked so many years in print and absolutely cherishing it so much. So, anyway, that's why, like, because obviously, so just come up sometimes with Facebook recommendations, and it's just because we've got so many mutual connections. Yeah, I was just kind of like, I just wanted to say hello. Yeah.
The industry is pretty small.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Anyway, so.
It's so nice to meet you. It's really.
You be around the industry for a while, you pick up a couple of things.
Yeah. I was wondering about
because of all of the copyright pitfalls of the way that the training is, it's not a good idea for any company who wants to retain the copyright over their work to use the
big laws of communication. They're not there yet, but you've got that so deeply entrenched in your work. I don't know.
So there's already precedent that if you use AI art as your foundation, that's already in some places. It's a risk that last time I was in charge of a large company, and there was a risk that my next big game would suddenly be the GTA license because the LLMs they use pull code from the GTA from the web. And because they didn't license it properly, or whatever, suddenly applies. It's too expensive. And then my entire game has to be released, like the source has to be released. Yeah, that's a nightmare. You have to think about what you need to make. So, like, was saying, you can have your own proprietary stuff, so just how you like to do things. And that's a smarter way to keep your so that the tools, technology, the tools, useful when used in a sensible way. Is the
that's very interesting because I worked before engineer for a while. I left. There was a lot of talk about AI and how they wanted to use it. So it's interesting getting a new perspective on how game loss is done and what they were planning to get. How you do it over there?
There's a specific committee across the wider that you are allowed to apply to do this. Or at least you know that there's a risk there. If you risk it, I'm making an indie project, it's probably not going to make any money. It's not a big deal.
You never know what will take off. Like, some people I've seen in projects and they should explore. And you had all the Mario assets in there, right? So, yeah, that's still iconic today. And you can't go back to it, you can't reclaim it.
It still gets moved on and ripped on.
Yeah, sure it is.
Did you see the news that this morning you guys put out a new trailer?
Us? No.
Did you work on it at all?
I haven't worked on that one. I'm working on the much bigger, very secret projects.
Oh!
Exciting!
That is exciting.
Well, studio that big.
I've not seen it. That's really cool. We have a particular interest with Meetup. When we supposed together.
Yeah, cool.
So we're very much like, oh, you play a game.
If it goes as well as the person built, there'll be an opportunity for a sequel, and Brisbane will almost certainly be involved in that, even if we are a sister studio. A little bit help with So it might be valuable experience.
So nice to see, you know, because it's just really so proud of Brisbane. It's like we care.
We do care.
I'm just so happy to see community positive developers like getting into particularly Brisbane. You know, so it's huge.
It still frustrates me that it's a BBC property.
Oh,
It's like,
oh my
our ABC didn't have the money to give them, so they went overseas.
Yeah, exactly.
And now we get some of the money back into our community. It goes to a bunch of struggles.
Yeah. But we developed subject to the community and culture. So we've certainly seen
Yeah, I made things in Unity such as so my master's led to bringing together 50 groups. Echoes. Game night, graphic telling. Did I say Colostrum? I need to say Colostrum.
That's an important one to mention.
I always say someone would have like build for like it's very large. It's a very large. There was the same benefits. Very like